And welcome to another edition of Scott Wheeler's Airplay. This is episode number 27, where we go behind the scenes to meet the radio and TV folks and people who've moved on from TV and learn their stories, what's going on in their lives, a little bit about them behind the scenes. You can catch this on Peoria Life's Facebook page. It's live right now, but you can see future episodes and past episodes as well there. Also Facebook, YouTube, and Peoria TV, Channel 17 on the i3 broadband system. I'm Scott Wheeler from Super Hits WIRL, and today my guests both spent many years on television as main anchors for their respective stations and now have made the transition into marketing and public relations at OSF Healthcare. We're talking, of course, about Amy, Paul, and Shelli Dankoff, both here today. Welcome to Airplay.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Scott.
So I have played a lot of rock and roll records, and I'm getting old, so my memory is a little off. So walk me back to exactly your timetable when, Shelli, you were at 25 and 31, and Amy, you were at 31. So we'll start with you. Give me the years and the succession.
I'm the old lady. Well, and there was a succession. So in 1985, I came to WEEK, hired as a producer and a nightside reporter, eventually became an anchor. Yes, sat next to Tom McIntyre and Mike Dimmick for a number of years. So that was 85 to 90. I went through one pregnancy on air and 2/3 of the other one. And then we moved to North Carolina for 3.5 years.
That's right.
Because my husband got a job, who was also in media doing weather, down in North Carolina. So I just did freelance work down there and did not work full time. Had the second and then a third kid. And in 1993, came back to Channel 31 and then was there all the way through 99. And then anchoring the 6, 5, 6, 10, I don't know, all of the shows over there. And in 1997, I wanted to transition off of The Late Show. And then we had an opening because Kristen Hartman had moved on. And I fought to get this one hired. And I spent months going, have you hired her? Have you hired her? So then that was the transition when she came in 1997.
Okay. All right. And Amy, where were you then before Peoria?
So I think a lot of people know we're both Ohio University alum, which has a
Now, I knew you were. I didn't know you were.
Yeah, we're a decade apart, so as she likes to tell everyone. But so I went from Ohio University to Parkersburg, West Virginia, which is about 45 minutes away. Was there for about 2.5 years. Then it was time to start looking for my next career or my next job. So something must have sucked me into Illinois because I had an interview in Georgia, but then it was Southern, Carbondale, WHOI here for a morning show, which actually went defunct but came back, and then WMBD for Kristen Hartman's position, which was the 5 p.m., and then it would be reporting before the 5 p.m. And so when I got here, I interviewed probably around August, didn't get the offer till about November, but that's broadcast. I mean, they take their time. So during that time, I guess Shelli was fighting for me. It was between me and another person. So I got here basically the day before Thanksgiving, a couple days before Thanksgiving of November 97. Thought I'd be here 2 years and out. Shelli ended up leaving after my 2 years, and I took over her 2 anchor spots. So I was 5, 6, and 10. And then signed another 3-year agreement, signed another 2-year agreement, but with outs, and then got married and decided, I guess this is where I'm going to live from now on. And so, but it's been
Illinois.
great. Thank you.
We were both on that. Hey, we'll come do TV for a little bit of time in Peoria, and this marks, well, collectively, it's like over 30 years I've been here now.
This happens to many people who work in our industry here.
It does, yeah.
So, Shelli, where are you from?
I am from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, so Western Pennsylvania, which explains...
Arnold Palmer.
And Rolling Rock Beer and the Steelers. So, yay, they won last night. I was super excited about that. Her being a Browns fan because she's from Cleveland.
Yeah.
So we tend to engage in a few back and forth, especially the Browns are doing better this year. But yeah, so I went from Latrobe, Pennsylvania to Ohio University and then to Rochester, Minnesota on my first job before coming here.
So if you pushed to get Amy here, did you? How did you know each other, or did you even know her?
We did not. No, at that time they asked me to review the tapes. You always had to send tapes to be hired.
Yeah.
In the broadcast world, either radio or TV, they don't care if you're straight A's. If you can't walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time, you aren't getting hired. So it had come down to 2 finalists, and Dwayne Wallace, our news director, and back in those days, it was on 3/4 inch tape. I mean, like This is dating
Spent
us.
a lot of money.
Oh, man. Through the snail mail it went. And he put both of them in and said, give me your opinion. And I still can vividly remember the two. And then I saw she was from Ohio University. I went, well, there's no doubt on this one. But no, the other girl, and they were like exact opposites. The other one was dark-haired. She was from Oklahoma. I can very much remember exactly what it was. And there was very distinct differences. And I looked at him. I said, there's no comparison. Why are you even asking me? I think he just needed me to confirm what he already knew. But that's how we met, was me seeing her resume tape.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had that university connection. And
Yeah. You know what was so funny? Because she was such a popular anchor, they didn't want to, turn over the cart and make people upset. So we really had a very nice promo when I started. It was Shelli with her kids on a playground, and then they kind of brought me in as I'm part of the family, and I'm coming because she wants to be, she's moving from the night to the day. She ended up the noon news as well with Rusty Dunn. And so we made that transition. And for a while, there were 5 of us on the news desk once, for a couple segments during the news. It was Dave Snell, her husband, Mike McClellan, myself, Bob, and Shelli. So they made it, I wasn't this person trying to come up and take her job. It was basically Shelli made the choice.
Literally for months, because Bill Lamb was our general manager at the time. Gene Robinson was retiring, and there was that transition going on. And I would literally go past Bill's office every day. Have you hired Amy yet? Have you hired Amy yet? And he just looked at me. And we've told this story before too. At Gene's retirement reception, they had at Stephanie Restaurant, the old Stephanie Restaurant on North Knoxville. And I walk in that night, and again, I just got to where I would just say it and just keep walking. And I said, have you hired Amy yet? Yes. And I literally turned back around. I'm like, are you messing with me? And he's like, no, because it took months because there was just all this transition stuff going on. But no, and we were very careful about it because people look at it like, oh, she's coming in and forcing her out. I'm like, no, I wanted her hired months ago because then I mean, my kids at the time,
they were little.
They were little. So 97, they would have been whatever, 7, 5, and 1. I can't do the math in my head.
And I was mid-20s. I didn't care about working late nights. I was used to being up. So
but they were in school and stuff. So there was a big deal for me.
Well, my perception was it was not an antagonistic thing at all. I remember the transition, and so.
I mean, you were losing an anchor anyway. Kristen Hartman moved on, so you needed someone for one of the shows. It didn't matter which one.
So as you look back at your time behind the anchor desk, what did you really like about that job? Anything?
Absolutely. And it's what I get to do today. It's the part that I've taken. And people say, oh, that we still watch you all the time.
Right.
It will be 20 years next month for me. 20 years. It was November of 1999 that I walked away. And the thing I get to do now is what I enjoyed then, and it was telling the stories. So you met people, you told their stories, and there's still stories that you remember all these years later. And I think that was the most important thing. And we worked with some really great people back in the day.
I would say camaraderie is, I mean, we have reunions with, we call it old school WMBD, the John Days, the Bob Larson, et cetera, Dave Snell. And we get together, and the stories, even pre-us, are hilarious. People do not understand what goes on behind the scenes and what you were allowed to get away with back then. I mean, it's nuts.
It was different, and it was definitely different 20 years ago. It would not be allowed to fly nowadays. We know we all would have been in HR every other day because it's just a different tone and a different temperament and stuff. And honestly, I think the two of us watch the news these days, and we will be texting each other going, can you believe this? Because we would have been suspended for some of the things that are allowed to happen nowadays. Let's put it that way. You couldn't be opinionated. You couldn't take sides. You couldn't do any of this stuff.
I think the fact checking, and I understand they're under pressure. Social media, be first. But a lot of the fact checking is not happening. But staffs are being chopped as well.
So your colleague, Maggie Vespa, made national news a few weeks ago for comments from a viewer about her wardrobe, which brought up the fact that you, I'm sure, when you were anchoring, were under the scrutiny constantly of viewers about what you were wearing, your earring was crooked.
Oh, yeah.
Don't cut your hair. Heaven
cut your hair.
forbid.
Or grow it out.
Oh.
And I used to see, because you will remember at WMBD, we used to get the call sheet.
Right.
Which was circulated to all department heads about all the calls that
Right.
came into the front desk.
Right.
What was the most outlandish thing
I know mine.
Go for it. You go
Oh,
first.
yeah.
somebody
Mine.
pointed out to you that you were like, really?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about the story I'm doing?
Well, we had consultants, and they would, do your or tell you how to do your makeup and how you would act with your news anchor. So at the time, it was if Bob was sitting there, I would talk, and then I would turn to him like I would talk to you as a conversation. Well, I have a scrapbook, and it was a handwritten, at least 4-page. You could tell it was an elderly lady claiming that I was flirting with Bob Larson, who's basically my dad's age, and that I was flirting with him, and that if I was Bob's wife, I would be livid, and that my hair at the time, Jennifer Aniston was big. It was Friends, and she had the kind of two-tone hair and the
Right.
choppy, and I had that, and she said, and you're trying to be just like Jennifer Aniston, and your hair looks like a skunk. So I have that, and I mean, I love keeping. Luckily, I don't think we got too many bad complaints. I don't know about. I mean, you probably have a funny one too.
I have a couple of those. The one was my first job was up in Minnesota. Well, Western Pennsylvania, words are pronounced, believe me, totally differently.
Sure.
The word wash has an R in it in Western
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So you had to break regionalisms. Well, I grew up saying realtor. No, realtor, like you sell a house, is a 2-syllable word.
Right.
And I have the perfectly penmanship letter, because again, back in the day, you had to write a letter, which is kind of impressive. It wasn't social media. You can fire it off in an email.
Right.
Yeah.
You had to take time. This woman who is realtor, so I had that very specific. I've never mispronounced the word realtor since. I had the one when I was at EEK, and it's a holiday, and first of all, it used to drive me nuts that we would have to do every newscast
Right.
on 4th of July or whatever.
Because no
Really?
one's watching.
Yeah, no one's watching. We would just re-rack all the same stories. But this woman calls. She had never seen me anchor before. She's in visiting from out of town. Calls, and we would leave the set when the weather segment was on. People didn't realize it. And we're answering the phones. I don't know who they thought was answering the phones in Peoria, Illinois, but it was us, especially on a holiday. And she just starts going on and on about your news gal, which I love being called that. And the station should give her some money and dress her appropriately. And it was a sweat. The funny thing was, the station had.
Right.
I had used some of my clothing allowance for it, because back in the day we actually had clothing
And makeup
allowances.
and hair.
And she just went, I just let her go, and I let her go. And then I informed her the station did buy that for me. And you could just hear her sucking her tongue down her throat. I'm like, but I'll pass along your feedback. Goodbye, click. But I was just like, are you kidding me? And then I once had a man call me, a gentleman call, and ask what shoes I was wearing for an outfit, because his wife had a similar colored dress, and he wanted to buy the right color shoes for her. I'm like, okay, seriously? So, yeah, we would, it wasn't unusual.
Yeah.
But nobody ever called Bob Larson or Tom McIntyre and said, are you wearing the same navy blue?
Right.
We used to joke we were going to put Bob in the same navy blue
Right.
blazer.
Every day.
Maybe change the tie and see if anybody noticed.
Noticed it?
Because
Yeah.
they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't have called.
Right.
No,
Right.
absolutely not.
We're talking with Shelli Dankoff and Amy Paul, formerly of WEEK and WMBD TV, and we'll make the transition here, working in the marketing, public relations area at OSF Healthcare. And I think you started the big shift.
I did, and it seemed like it snowballed after
Yes,
that.
it's the running joke is we've got a conveyor belt going from media to OSF Healthcare. So why'd you make the switch, and when was that?
It was 2007, the fall, and
Okay.
a lot of people might know Chris Lofgren, who was the longtime PR director for OSF
Right.
St. Francis. One of the reporters came back to the newsroom. She was already gone from WMBD, and said, Chris Lofgren's retiring. Well, at this point, I was starting to decide, and I had some interviews out in other states for media or for journalism, but then I'd have to drag my husband along, and I'd be working weekends or nights again. So I was starting to look in the PR realm. So I called him right away. I'll try and make this short. Got an interview with Keith Steffen, who was the president at the time. Did this all under the radar within about a month or two. And then while I was gone on vacation in December, he offered me the job, and I started in January of '08. So it was about a 2 or 3 month process. I think the station was pretty shocked because I kept it under wraps.
You did it. I remember that.
Yeah.
You did a very good job.
Yeah, except somebody at the hairdresser when I was going to get a haircut.
It's always there.
It's always the hairdresser.
They always know.
Don't tell them. But so then they had created a different job called Executive Director of Strategic Communication. It was over a lot of things, and I was working a ton and doing. I'd remember 5:30 in the morning or 5 when I wasn't used to getting up that early yet. Being called for PR for the hospital because of snowstorms and stuff. So I was in more administrative a role as well. So for me to try and help out the media with stories was lacking. So I was able to ask Keith to have another position created called Media Relations Specialist. So then in September, I believe it was, I opened up that job and interviewed a few people, probably people who we've all talked to and known. But I mean, Shelli stood out because, and it wasn't because I had worked with her, but she loves still working with the media. She loves to mentor people. She still loves to do all the auctions and all that. And she loves, she's still in the media somewhat. And she's helping these younger journalists now that are here in Peoria. But we're still getting our news out as well, fairly. But so it was a fit. And then we got to grow the department, and now it's, tenfold, and lots of others have joined us.
And payback for that helpful nudge to get Amy hired at 31.
It worked well. Yeah. It's a good transition for both of us. Yeah.
So, Shelli, what do you like about working at OSF versus television? What's different?
Okay, normal hours, number one.
Okay.
So, I mean,
you got me right there.
Yeah, there's a normal, but sometimes they're
Yeah,
different.
we do work a lot.
And again, it goes back to I'm still able to tell the stories. I'm just one-sided now. I don't have to be fair and balanced. I have my story. We have our own newsroom. So I'm operating newsroom equipment that I'm shooting my own stuff. I'm editing, and there's several of us on the team. And so we populate that because we understand the media landscape has changed. Would I love everybody to be coming and doing stories at St. Francis or Children's Hospital of Illinois every day? That's not reality. There's not enough bodies. So if we want to get our stories out, we have to help that. And we are a more regional and statewide, healthcare organization now. We are not just about Peoria.
Right.
So to help do that, we share the story on our newsroom. So I still get to do all of those things I was trained to do. And I think that's the most fun about it. And the people you meet. I mean, it is amazing. The people, not only that we work with, but the stories that come out of the hospital.
The patients. The patient families are...
It's phenomenal. The people you will cross paths with and the stories they have to share.
Yeah, I mean, we had the first in the world artificial trachea implant into a little girl about 6 years ago or so. That was first in the world. That took us about a year or more just in logistics. We had a Korean film crew over because she was from South Korea. I mean, the logistics were massive, and the media from around the world was massive. And they thought they were coming to Podunk, Peoria, not knowing that they had 2 journalists who were trained at St. Francis to do this. So we've had really good
and
stories.
That was kind of fun. And then in a way that does, we see that because people will say Peoria, they don't realize the medical community. It's amazing. These journalists will call in from outside, and she's right. People don't realize we've been on their side. So we'll kind of let them make a little bit of fools of themselves first. And then we'll kind of go, well, you do realize we have this, that, and the other thing. And you can just hear them go quiet. They're like, in Peoria? I'm like, yeah, we are a major medical center and a destination medical center for children, for adults, for
innovation,
for neurological, and I think that's the really cool thing. It's the bigger story that we're now able to tell everybody, and because we have everything here, and people are realizing the way of life in central Illinois, it's so much easier to get around and get the same level of care than dealing with a Chicago or an Indianapolis or a St. Louis. And we're getting better about that.
Do you guys feel a certain amount of pressure these days with the, I'll call it location diversification of Caterpillar, that people are throwing eggs into the OSF basket that say you guys are going to economically rescue this area? Do you feel that pressure?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Shelli actually, so I do the marketing for Children's Hospital and OSF Healthcare Illinois Neurological Institute and the foundation. So I've gotten out of the PR world more, and I'm more of the data-driven marketing and growing business. But Shelli's really been on the side of the downtown
with the headquarters building
Yeah.
that's going on. I think the beautiful thing, our current CEO, Bob Searing, he is, he doesn't let it be portrayed that there's too many. He's very realistic. And ultimately, people have to remember, it's the sisters' message, too. The sisters will say, we are here to care for patients. And at the end of the day, that is what we are here doing. We are providing health care. Is it changing through some very innovative ways and all the work that's going on at JUMP? And are we partnering with outside groups and organizations? Absolutely. But I think they will always give people that reality check. Yes, we want to be here to help boost that economic generator that we need, but we need to do it collaboratively. You cannot just look at the sisters and expect them to be the saviors, because we are a not-for-profit healthcare organization whose end goal is to make communities healthy. And so we're changing some of that strategy. So I think some of the collaboration that is coming out of that work, we are very actively involved in generating that. And so I do think that's a huge plus. But you know, Bob's not afraid to have those conversations with people and say, okay, here's
Hold on.
yes, yes. And we even restructured, and sometimes we know it gets frustrating because just our time there, when we were just the St. Francis world, and we would sponsor a variety of things, a lot of things. And so we had to transition that because we were sponsoring things that benefited our own world. It's like you were taking money out of your own and putting it back to yourself.
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So we've kind of changed strategically how we even sponsor some things. And that's been hard for some people to get used to.
And they have to remember that we are giving, I don't want to say giving away for those who can't pay for their health care, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so when we can't do a sponsorship for maybe a group that's not even health related, it's not because we don't want to, but we have to stay with our mission and help those who are in need.
And the other thing we've done as an organization overall, again, it's not just about Peoria. Yes, does Peoria have the largest level 1 trauma center? Absolutely. And are we headquartered here? Yes. But, you know, we have facilities in Galesburg, in Bloomington, in Pontiac, and up in I-80, and now soon to be in Chicago. And then down in Alton. So we really cover a lot of the state. And we want to have a positive impact in all of those communities. And so because it all does tie together, we want people, no matter where they hit the door of OSF Healthcare, whether it's Peoria or, you know, Pontiac, it's the same level of care with the same expertise and the same assets and resources. And so you have to be, you know, mindful of that.
Well, we're out of time.
All right. I know, I see the zeros already.
Shockingly, we've filled the time.
You guys owe me some of those stories that you talk about at the WMBD old school reunions. You may filter them as appropriate for television. My guests, Amy, Paul, and Shelli Dankoff, who you know for years on television in the area and now over at OSF Healthcare doing great work for the mission of that organization. This has been Scott Wheeler's Airplay. We'll be back next week with Julia Bradley from WMBD Radio. Remember, you can catch this on Peoria Life's Facebook page, YouTube, Peoria TV, Channel 17 on the i3 broadband system. Also available on Apple Podcasts if you're on the go. Until next time, thanks for watching Airplay.
PeoriaLife.com.